So sometimes the best thing you can do is just stop practicing. Stop. Hey dancers, it's Kirsten. Welcome back to the Confident Dancer YouTube channel. Today I have a Q&A for you, which I'm pretty excited about. Some of these were taken from the comment section in the video I did a few weeks ago titled 5 Signs That You Have an Unhealthy Relationship with Your Emotions. And so a lot of these questions are related to how to deal with particularly emotional situations, but I also incorporated a few other questions I've gotten recently about how to handle criticism. If you make a mistake or fall on stage as a professional dancer, does that mean you'll get fired? Things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. I'll have timestamps below if you're interested in getting my answers to particular questions. And I hope you enjoy. The first question I'll answer is a question I often get from individual coaching clients. How do we find that balance between feeling what we're feeling and processing those unpleasant emotions in a healthy way instead of just shutting them down, with also not indulging in the emotions, getting stuck in them, dwelling on them, letting them fester, you know? I'm sure you do. The simple answer I'll just start with is I like to encourage dancers to ask themselves, is feeling this or processing this emotion, is that resourceful for me right now? And what I mean by resourceful, I mean, is it useful to help you thrive? Is it useful to help you fulfill your objectives in the current moment? So if you are in the middle of ballet class and you're experiencing a lot of frustration coming up, I definitely encourage you to notice the frustration, practice some curiosity around that, just maybe notice it, honor that it's there, validate it, like, okay, I'm feeling frustrated right now, that's understandable. Maybe practice some curiosity by asking, like, okay, where's this coming from? All right, noted. Okay, so once you have an awareness of like, okay, I think this is coming from my jealousy towards that other dancer. That's usually the point where if that ballet class is not going to be the space for you to like work this through, have a conversation with yourself, journal about it, cry through it, whatever you need to do to let the emotion run its course and pass through you. If that's not going to be the place and you ask yourself, okay, is it resourceful for me to sit in this feeling right now? If the answer is no, then I recommend getting to that point where you're like, oh, this isn't just about my frustration, like, oh, I'm not a good enough dancer. It's because I'm feeling jealous about the other dancer. Okay, noted. That's going to be a good place to pick back up later when it is a good time for you to process that through. Maybe at night before you go to bed, it's time to journal about that. Or maybe later you decide to have a conversation with your mom about that. And if you need to cry to let it out, do that. So I hope that makes some sense. It's not always the time and place to process right then and there, right now. And then also sometimes when you are processing and you are letting yourself feel those emotions, there will be a point where if you're practicing self-awareness, you might notice that you have really talked through everything, you felt through it, and sometimes you might notice that you feel complete with experiencing the sadness, the anger, whatever it is. But sometimes, I know I can do this too, we can keep an emotion around out of habit. It's just the mood we're in for the day, and we've decided, I am angry today about this thing. And since you decided you're angry about it, instead of noticing the anger coming up and being like, okay, I'm going to work through that. That's my objective for today. I'm going to work through that. There's a difference between working through it and only experiencing the emotion for as long as you need to work through and deciding, I am angry today. Sometimes when we make a decision, like this is the mood for today, it keeps the emotion around longer than we really need. We might end up, without really even knowing that we're doing it, unintentionally reminding ourselves of the situation that makes us angry and going back to the same narrative of this is why I'm angry, instead of noticing, okay, I feel anger, my objective is to move through that, which then might lead you to shift your perspective on the situation and say, you know what, I'm going to practice compassion for myself, understanding towards the other person, objectivity, non-judgment, whatever, so that my narrative changes and the feeling changes. I hope that helps you to kind of discern, are you sitting in it? Or are you feeling that emotion appropriately? So just ask yourself, is this resourceful for me to feel right now? Also, I do definitely recommend, if you haven't seen that video I referenced already, the 5 signs that you have an unhealthy relationship with your emotions, I'll link it here. Go give that a watch. Okay, the second question I will read off of my computer. It's, as a teacher, you can have a situation where a student in class tries really hard to do one particular step, but isn't able to do it properly. He or she sees that all the others can do the step and they get really frustrated frustrated and almost start crying. What can you do as a teacher to help the student handle the distress, especially if they're young? Great question, and I'll also try to incorporate an answer for you dancers. If you feel like the dancer who's being mentioned in this question, I hope my answer also helps you as well. So what I do as a teacher, like sometimes the fact of the matter is you're not going to stop their tears. You're not going to instantly be able to change their state. That is something maybe they just need to feel for the day and work through. I like to acknowledge them without putting too much of a spotlight on them. Like this is something I'm definitely learning to do well as an instructor too. And I've noticed that ignoring it really depends on the student, honestly. And it's not like we're ignoring as if we're heartless, but sometimes if you know the personality of the student and their emotions amplify if you turn your attention towards them, sometimes I've noticed that I just need to make eye contact with them and just say a simple, like, you're doing okay. So that the other students don't notice that I acknowledge them, but they feel acknowledged. Like sometimes that's the best approach, because speaking to them in front of the group will put more of a spotlight on them and they will get even more maybe humiliated or embarrassed. That's something I've learned by making the big mistake of putting a spotlight on it. Even if I'm saying really encouraging things, I notice that could like just make it so much worse for them. So I've definitely messed up in that area. So that's one approach depending on the personality of the student. The other is, I would say, normalize it and just create an atmosphere of calmness and acceptance. I plant the seed of trust. I know you'll get it. I know it's coming with time. Just keep an open mind and remember you're totally capable. It's okay if today isn't the day. I just like to plant that seed of trust. It really goes a long way. And then the other thing is I like to take the attention off of them while still giving them attention. So here's how I do it. I like to share the example really simply that, hey, I used to feel that way all the time as a student. It's so normal to get really frustrated and to feel like you're behind. I like to share the example that I was one of the last dancers to get a double pirouette in my class when I was 12. And then I ended up being the only dancer in my class who ended up going professional. I also didn't get my splits until I was 14, and I just tell them, like, I used to feel so behind. I felt like such a loser sometimes, and like I just wasn't doing well enough, and if I could just go back and tell myself, like, it's just a matter of time, you'll get it, I totally would. So kind of taking the attention off of them and normalizing that it doesn't mean that just because they're not getting the step today doesn't mean that they're behind or they're getting left behind or they're not good. They're just on their way. So I like to do those things. And so if you're a dancer watching and you experience this, those are some helpful reminders for you too. There are so many dancers that you see as all accomplished and whatever right now who felt the exact same way as you. If you're coming back from an injury, like for me, recognizing that there were so many dancers in my company at the time who had been through knee surgeries, ankle surgeries, whatever, and I had no idea they've gone through that. I thought I'm the only one. I'm losing all this. I'm going to be so behind, and realizing like, wow, people have gone through all this and they're okay. That was really helpful for me. Same applies to points of frustration in your technique. There are so many dancers out there who felt behind, who felt not good enough, whatever, and you're looking at them now and you see their final product, but truth is no one's a final product. And the other thing is, chances are they have struggled in many similar ways as you. So give yourself the benefit of the doubt, give yourself time, and also this is for teachers and students. Psychologically, if you are stuck in a state of frustration and a lot of intense, unpleasant emotions, it will be very hard to practice effectively. So sometimes the best thing you can do is just stop practicing. Stop. Come back later when you feel more neutral. Okay, so that's often what I end up encouraging dancers to do now. Like, I don't, again, always single out that dancer who's struggling. I'll just say, okay, let's just go ahead and move on. And I'll just generally say, if you feel frustrated, let's just leave that for another day and come back to it with a clear mind. I think that's super important. And for you dancers who like to just practice, trying to make the mistake better, That's great and all to have that initiative and that drive, but remember that sometimes the best thing you can do is leave it, sleep on it, relax, and then come back with an open and clear mind. Hey dancers, I wanted to just briefly take a pause in this video to talk to you about the Confident Dancer Coaching Program, which is an opportunity to work with me individually as your mindset coach to help you develop the confidence to truly feel and dance your best consistently. So much of being the dancer you want to be is a mental game. We know that. And if you're struggling with self-doubt, performance anxiety, low self-esteem, perfectionism, comparison, overthinking, all that stuff, I've seen it, I've lived it, I see it in clients all the time. And to walk them through this journey of supporting them and equipping them with the real tools and mindset shifts and insights to build the confidence that they've always wanted, it's so incredible. And so change is absolutely possible for you, even if you think, no, I'm a chronic overthinker, I can't. I'm just not a confident dancer. You guys, you don't have to keep struggling. And I just want you to know that that support is available. And this is a great time, especially if you're preparing for audition season in the spring. Just know that this is a great time to start equipping yourself with the confidence now and the awareness of your strengths, all these things, the mindset that will help you to succeed and thrive and have a great time even in audition season. So invest in that and in yourself and in your success now. And the way that you can learn more about the Confident Dancer Coaching Program and take the next step to working together is visit theconfidentdancer.com or kirstenkemp.com. They both lead to the same website. You can learn more about my services there, see amazing testimonials from past clients I've worked with, excuse my dog barking, and also you can reach out to apply for a free 30-minute consultation where you and I can discuss your challenges, your goals, and see if working together would be a great fit. So I can't wait to speak with you and support you, and let's go on with the rest of the video. Okay, the next question is, how do you deal with favoritism in the ballet world? For example, a director focusing more on a particular student and giving them more guidance simply because they've worked with that student for longer. Okay, yes, favoritism is such a downer, am I right? We all hate it unless we are the favorite, you know? But even then, it's kind of uncomfortable to know that other people are not getting treated with the same level of intention. So what you can do if you're a dancer who's frustrated with the state of favoritism in the studio setting, what I always did is, and this won't take all the unpleasantness away from it, but my mindset is always, how can you make this situation work for you? I love that mantra. Things are happening for you and not to you. And part of that is a choice to live that mantra out. So what you can do in that attitude of being resourceful is ask yourself, how could this be an opportunity for me? Maybe it's an opportunity for you to talk to the teacher and ask for corrections. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to practice being your own best teacher and not relying on someone else's attention or direction in order to improve. Maybe it's a great opportunity for you to work on your attachment to external validation. Is it a pleasant lesson to learn? Absolutely not. But is it extremely useful? Yes. Some of the wisdom that I've gained in my life has come at a great cost to me and my comfort. Whether that was going through a really toxic relationship with a teacher and then realizing I cannot live dancing for other people anymore. I do not choose to live another day of my life giving my worth and my power to anyone else. Part of my mindset now came from that extremely painful year of my life. What I'm doing right now for work as a coach and a speaker, a lot of it came from that extremely painful year of my life, or the year of my life I spent injured and going through a surgery and all these injections and just feeling like a failure in life. It was so uncomfortable, but that was my school for life. That what I learned in that year was more useful to me than a university degree that, people pay 6 figures for. It is, I think, a huge act of maturity to make the choice to say, how could this be an opportunity for me to grow right now? Do I need to grow in my detachment of what this person thinks of me? Do I need to practice self-belief instead of relying on someone else to believe in me for me to believe in me? Whatever that is, you can definitely discover it for yourself. Use this as an opportunity, and maybe again it's an opportunity for you to practice advocating for yourself. asking for corrections, asking for what you need, communicating with the teacher. A lot of dancers are extremely terrified to be able to do it, but it's a skill that will be so important for you, especially if you want to make a career out of this. You need to learn how to talk to authority figures and to actually be authoritative yourself and ask, obviously with respect and kindness. But sometimes this like culture of being nice just turns into all of us being powerless and silent. So let's not confuse being nice for not speaking up at all. Next question. This one will be quite a simple answer. Are you likely to get fired for falling or making a mistake on stage as a professional? Thank God, no. Sometimes I think that even though, yeah, sometimes the ballet world can be scary and it just seems like so terrifying when you are pre-professional looking to go professional. Like, I remember, wow, thinking that company auditions sounded like the most terrifying thing I would ever go through in my life. And then once I actually got in them, I was like, seriously, like it feels like a summer intensive audition. Like, yeah, there's a lot of like pressure and responsibility that comes with the job, but in some ways it's really not as like strict and terrifying as we think as students, just because you hear these stories. And a lot of teachers like will fear monger in order to get their students to work hard. They'll be like, you could never make that mistake in a company, you would get fired. Like, I heard that so much in my training. And then I realized, actually, that's only true in super toxic companies that I would never dance for, and that probably wouldn't accept me anyway, but whatever. For the best. In some ways, yeah, there's a lot of responsibility, and in some ways as a student, you do need to learn. The expectations are very high in a company. A lot of the expectations being high, I think it comes with being a consistent performer. Like, the director needs to trust that you can deliver. But just because you make one mistake doesn't necessarily mean that that trust is entirely broken, especially if it's a mistake around, like, if the stage is slippery and you fall. Like, I knew soloists in the company that I used to dance for that would honestly fall all the time on stage. They still kept getting roles, and people just knew, like, the stage is slippery. It happens. What matters is how you recover from it. I'd say the mistakes that are the most dangerous for your reputation in a company are the ones where it's like you consistently don't know the choreography, you don't work well in a core, you can't stay in line, have trouble focusing, things like that. I think the main mistakes that seem to count against a dancer in a company are the ones around being easy to work with. So that's something important to keep in mind, but there's always, even if the margin for error feels very slim, there is a margin for error, and no, like, a mistake or a fall is not going to, it's not going to get you fired. Last question is how to handle criticism while maintaining self-respect. Very good question. So again, I'll say treat it as a learning opportunity. And I think that perspective of asking yourself, how could this be a learning opportunity for me? It applies to literally every situation, whether it feels good or it doesn't. And open your mind to realizing that the learnings can be very surprising, and they can seem totally not ballet related, but at the same time, they totally are. What I mean by this is, when you get criticism and it feels sensitive, maybe it feels hurtful, or it shakes you up a little bit, and maybe it changes your self-perception of like, oh, am I not as good as I thought I was? Things like that. I think it's a really good opportunity to practice resilience and also to practice humility. When I get criticism that makes me really uncomfortable, or it kind of shakes me up a little bit, I notice that it's my ego that's really uncomfortable with that. Like, I wanted to hear good job. I wanted to just think, oh, it was all great. But realizing, at least for me personally, I usually like to treat it as an opportunity to grow in acceptance, to grow in humility, and to say thank you, even if the criticism was, sometimes it's constructive and it was delivered just fine. It's just the content that's like, oh, uncomfortable or vulnerable. Sometimes it's not delivered well at all, but it can still be a great opportunity for you to practice sifting through what they've said to find the gold nugget and to leave the rest. That is such a good skill, because especially in the ballet world, just like, you guys, directors just don't always, sorry, you guys, they don't seem to know how to use their words in a way that's helpful. That's been my experience a lot of the time. Like, they'll just say a comment that has something constructive in there, but just deliver it in a way that it's like, you really had to say it that way? Really? Like, you couldn't have just practiced like pausing for a second before you spoke? No, apparently not. So learning the skill of being able to say like, here's what I'm going to take from that, and I'm going to leave the rest. This is a great opportunity for that. I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me know what you think of this video. If you have any extra questions, I'd love to hear them. Maybe I'll address them in another video or an Instagram post. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Bye.